Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Word on Woodward. Thank you so much for joining us today, along with every Tuesday and Thursday starting at noon. We've got a really exciting show planned for you today, but I want to remind you that Carly Johnston is manning all of our social media channels right now, looking for your questions, comments, and anything else that you want to say for today's show. So yes, she'll be on social media. Make sure you're interacting with everybody there. And now let's bring in my co-host, Art Regner. Art, you ready for a great show today?
I am looking forward to it, Danielle. I just want to say, good afternoon to you and to everybody listening out there. Really looking forward to, anytime you can talk sports, it's a great day, and we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Yes, we are, Art. And as I mentioned, we've got a jam-packed show for you today. In the mailbag segment, we're welcoming back Ken Kale. I know everyone always loves to hear from Ken. We've got exclusive interviews with Michael Fulmer. We're going to hear from Sean Casey and a really cool catching up with Carly with Josh York today. So you won't want to miss any of the action. But Art, we're going to kick things off with our Big Three segment as always, and that is presented by Chevrolet. So you ready for it?
I couldn't be readier, if that's a word. I think it is.
Readier. I like it. I like it. Well, let's take a look at our first Big Three story. And this one is Ron Gardenhire. He sat down with Dan Dickerson for an exclusive 1901 Club interview that hasn't even been released yet. So let's take a look at a little snippet of that interview.
Does this team it really seemed to be coming together? I don't know what your impression. It seemed to be coming together very well in spring. Does it remind you of any particular time in your period with the Minnesota Twins in terms of where this team might be and where it might be going?
Well, it does, because I also managed in the minor leagues, and we were part of that rebuild over in Minnesota when they were going through the rough times. And then, of course, 87 they win the World Series, and I became a coach in 88, and we started drafting really well the Knoblauchs and guys like that got to the big leagues that helped them win another World Series in 91. And our farm system was loaded. Well, I think that's what you see with the Tigers right now. Up and down, we've been able to, when you go through the losing part of it, you get high draft picks. And when you get high draft picks, if your scouting system and development people are really good, you're going to get really good players. And I think we've done all of that. They've really set our development team up down there very well. They all know what they're doing. And then, like I said, we've been getting high draft picks, thanks to me for a couple of years anyway. Getting high draft picks. It works out when you get good players and doing the right things. We're going to be loaded, and that's when you're going to get back to winning baseball.
Thanks, Daniela. It's time for Catching Up with Carly.
Whoa, hi, Carly.
Hi, Art. No, sorry about that. We're going to get to Carly in just a little bit. Sorry, Carly. Didn't mean to cut you off there. But we got to talk about that Ron Gardenhire interview, right? I mean, he's in that clip, he's given some high praise to the players that the Tigers have in their system and that they've hit on some draft picks and they've got a great player development team. And do you agree with him, Art?
Well, right. It's really the Tigers and Red Wings are kind of similar in that ilk. And, we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. The thing that I do like is looking at these draft picks. Who are they going to pick number one overall this year? Watching Riley Green develop or some of the young arms, Casey Mize. We're starting to know some of the players in the Tigers minor league system that, maybe in years past, because they were so good and the team was so competitive, that we really didn't know a whole lot about the minor leagues or who was coming up. But now we do, and, that's the natural progression. And I think that's, what Gardenhire was talking about, and I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I really would love to see the whole interview, and I guess, it's exclusive to the 1901 Society, so, check it out for sure. But, he feels good. He's been through it before with Minnesota, as he said. And so I think that this is, they're starting to get in a good place. I agree with what Double D said, that things are starting to come together. You can see a semblance of a team. And, I am really looking forward to seeing some of these young kids get in that Old English D and perform for the Tigers.
Yeah, and it's very encouraging to hear Ron Gardenhire talking about his team and comparing them to that Minnesota team from the late 80s, early 90s there, because that means that the Tigers are headed in the right direction.
Well, right. You can look at that Minnesota team. They were, as Tiger fans can remember, they go back like I do. Minnesota was really bad there for a while, and then bam, all of a sudden they got really good. And, a lot of that was because of, astute drafting and some moves that they made. And, it kind of reminds me a few years ago when the Houston Astros, when they joined the American League from the National League, they weren't very good either, but they had some young people coming up. And I can remember when the Tigers would play them, they say, okay, Houston might be the worst team in baseball right now, but they're going to turn it around quickly. And, hopefully the Tigers are on that same trajectory.
Definitely looking forward to the coming season and the whole future for the Red Wings. Now let's take a look in the community. I know we've been talking about this every show, that the Red Wings and Tigers have been very, very active in the community and making sure that they can give back in any way that they can during this COVID-19 pandemic. Let's take a look at some of the latest stuff that the Red Wings have done. Jimmy Howard, he donated $50,000 worth of N95 masks to some of our frontline workers. And then collectively, the Red Wings coaches and players have donated 1,200 meals to our night shift workers at Henry Ford Hospital and Sinai Grace. And this was part of Mayor Duggan's Feed Detroit initiative. So this is definitely something really cool. And it's great to see that the Red Wings are active in the community and helping out in any way that they can.
Well, the Red Wing Foundation has been doing stuff for years, as we very well know. I've been thinking about this. Jimmy with the mask. I love this comment. Hey, I'm a goalie, and I've been behind the mask, for 1,000 years, it seems like. And the biggest thing that he had difficulty finding 50,000 masks. So even though things are getting better and we're flattening the curve and things are opening up slowly but surely, and our stay-at-home order may go through May now. I don't know. That was the latest here in Michigan, but I guess what I really has warmed my heart is not only the way the Red Wings and the Tigers and athletes have banded together, but the way we all banded together. The Red Wings, Luke Glendenny kind of started this initiative, got hold of Dylan Larkin and Justin Abdicator and said, hey, let's get everyone together. They got the word out. Not only was the team involved, but as you said, coaches, trainers, everybody. They contacted Mayor Duggan's office. People were jumping on board, and they're all local restaurants too. They're supporting each other. And that's the thing that I think when we come out of this, and we are going to come out of this, I do think, and it goes back to what Igor Larionov told me a long time ago, that we're all made of the same material. So whether you're a high-end hockey player or, you're a part-time hourly employee, whatever you are, we're all kind of in this together, and it's bringing us all closer together. The human spirit. I don't mean to get all philosophical and start bringing up the the love beads and the acoustic guitar and playing Kumbaya, but but I really mean that. I think that what we're seeing here is that people that are in a position to help are helping, but what we're learning is that we're all in a position to help. And no better way than what the Red Wings and the Tigers and what athletes are doing across the country. I just tip my cap to them. I'm not surprised, especially, I deal with the Wings a lot. I know each and one of those guys. They're stand-up human beings. As a native Detroiter, you're proud to have them wear the Detroit uniform, the winged wheel or the Old English D. And, and I don't want to leave the Pistons and Lions out too. Everyone's doing an initiative. But, boy, I'll tell you what, it really, in a real tough time to watch everyone rallying together, it's good for the human soul. It's good for the spirit.
It is. And like you mentioned, Art, this is the time where everybody wants to help. And if you're interested in helping the Feed the Front Lines movement, visit feedthefrontlinesdetroit.com to learn more and contribute. Let's move on to our third topic of the big three today, Art. And I know this was something that we have already talked about with the NFL draft. We talked about it before it happened. Now let's take a look after the fact. We both can agree that that went super well, technically, very well done by ESPN and everybody else who broadcasted the draft. I think they did a great job from that standpoint. But now we kind of know what the layout's going to look like for the NHL and the NBA and maybe the MLB too. What did you think of it overall, Art?
I thought it was great. I don't know, because the NFL is the NFL. I am not sure of the technical capacity that the NHL is going to have. I do think that, and I'm sure he's really looking forward to this. Steve Yzerman, he'll certainly be on camera making picks. I think the difference in the NHL as opposed to the NFL, they're not going to be at Jeff Blashill's house. Blashill or any NHL coach is the first to tell you, very rarely are they involved in the NHL draft as far as picking players, knowing who players are. They can tell you what the need maybe for their team is, what they would like to see and shore up, and they might give them a couple of options, they being the, Chris Draper and his group saying, yeah, we've got this guy, we like both of them. What do you think? And he may offer something. So I would assume if they're going to do the two-man front, obviously one would be Steve, and I think the other one would be Chris Draper, I would imagine, as the chief of amateur scouting, which will be fun. I think that was the weirdest thing that came out of it, is that people were almost watching the draft and sort of listening to it, but they were more in tune with the coaches or general managers' children that were there, or whatever Mike Vrabel was doing there with his 3 sons. That was kind of weird. But aside from that, and the way they decorate their houses, I have gotten on social media, a lot of people love the cat castle behind me. And, and they're thinking, well, don't you have pictures and stuff like that? Yeah, I do. But, I've only been here for 5 years now. I haven't gotten around to hanging anything. But, and that is the Leonard Cohen's greatest hits album. Yes, people has said, yeah, I know that. And then, of course, I interchanged that with Frank Sinatra's Christmas album, which is an all-time classic. I suggest everybody run out to the stores and get it.
Yeah, Art, I think that was one of the coolest things about the draft, though. I really enjoyed seeing, what they're doing behind the scenes. And you mentioned children being involved. Bob Quinn came out and said that he had his kids crossing names off as they were drafted, the names of players. So it would be cool to kind of get that inside look with Steve Yzerman, too.
Right. I was joking around with some people, obviously Steve released a video in Canada. He's part of an effort thanking the, all the frontline people, all the workers and nurses and doctors. It's really a cool thing. And, and he obviously is in his house. He's in a Red Wing hoodie, red with the winged wheel. And he has a Team Canada hat on, and, he's got a pretty elaborate setup, a lot of mini Stanley Cups behind him. And, things that, I thought that because he's so secretive about that draft, that he'd have a card table and a chair with maybe one computer in the corner of his house, where in the smallest space possible. So you just couldn't, he's guarded. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. So, but that was cool to see on that video that was released in Canada. And I think that, I think it's going to be great. I think the NBA, it's not many rounds. So, and that'll go pretty well. The hockey rounds, there's 7 rounds in hockey, much like the NFL. But I thought it went well. I watched the first night, second night kind of, and then Saturday I completely forgot about it. Sorry, fellas that were drafted, but good luck. I thought it was great. I thought what was great about it was it had almost 16 million people watch it on Friday night. That's an astounding number to just sit there and watch guys get picked in the NFL. But it just shows you what sports means to us and how people are just, frothing at the mouth for some sort of competition in some sort of live sporting event. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, and the way they're going to figure it out, I'm not so sure in the venues themselves how many people will be allowed in, but I can tell you the television ratings are going to be through the roof.
I agree with you, Art. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out for the NHL draft and the MLB and the NBA. And that does it for our Big 3 segment today. I do want to loop back to that Ron Gardenhire interview, though. That was a exclusive for the 1901 Club, which is a group of our Tigers season ticket holders. So shout out to the 1901 Club and look for that interview, because it's going to be a really, really great exclusive interview with Ron Gardenhire. And a big thanks to our friends at Chevy as well for bringing us the Big 3. When our country is faced with adversity, we find a way to get through it. To help keep you on the road, your Chevrolet certified service experts are here and ready to help. Should you require parts, routine maintenance, or repairs, Chevrolet and its dealers remain committed to your vehicle's needs. Visit ChevyCares.com to learn more. And now we're going to get into our mailbag segment. And as I mentioned, we're bringing in Ken Cal. Today's mailbag is delivered by our friends at Little Caesars. So let's bring in Ken Cal to join Art and I. Ken, it's great to have you again.
Great to be in the post office with you guys today, and I enjoyed our conversation before we went on the air. Art, good to see you again. Danielle, it's always a pleasure as well.
Well, you know,
Yes,
you're my
Ken,
all-time favorite broadcaster, as you know.
Art's just digging himself in holes every single show. He's got to dig himself back out on Thursday.
His favorite Tiger was Richie Hebner. I was going to say, Art, your favorite Tiger was Richie Hebner. Wasn't he the grave digger? You're just digging yourself that grave.
Yeah. Right. You know what? I did love Richie Hebner, though. I loved him his whole career. He was a real character. But I want to say, Ken, you're dressed up. You're putting me to shame here. You've got your tie on. You really remind me, and I'm really dating myself, of Ward Cleaver. I mean, Ward Cleaver, no matter what was going on, the guy was cutting the grass or whatever, he was always wearing a tie. And but you're looking sharp, Ken. It's great to have you on.
Well, thank you very much. My shirt looks like a test pattern a little bit, but that's okay.
Art, you should know this by now. Ken is always dressed to the nines. Even when we were doing the forecheck, sometimes he makes me look bad. He always looks good. But we've got some great questions.
I always have to say you have to look good for radio. So,
and he does have the face for it. I'm sorry, it was too obvious.
Art, keep digging. All right, let's.
Yeah, I know.
Let's
I guess I'm going to
some
change
of
my
our
name to
questions. The first one's going to be for Ken. This one is Steve from Toronto. Ken, which Red Wings prospect do you think took the biggest leap this year?
You know, that's a really good question from Steve. And I don't know if you would consider this Red Wing a prospect now, because I think he's a well-proven commodity in the National Hockey League. But I really saw him grow, and that was Philip Roenick on the blue line. And, you know, he's still a young player, but he's learned a lot. And I think he really stepped up from a year ago to this year. When you think about it, we've said it before, he's played 23 to 25 minutes before the pause. He was the Red Wings' leading point getter on the blue line. I believe he had 30 points, 9 goals on the season. And he's just one of those guys that plays with an edge, and he's got a really good future with the Red Wings and one of the leaders back there on the blue line. So if you don't consider him as a prospect, then I'd have to choose Filip Zadina, because I really thought from a year ago to where he got injured, he was really coming on. He had 15 points, 8 goals, 7 assists, playing 15, 16 minutes a game. And it was just too bad that he really, ran into that injury problem, because I thought he was playing his best hockey, and you could see that he was getting more confidence. And I think that's the key with Filip Zadina. I don't think he had the confidence that he would have liked to have, but things started going well for him. He was playing well off the puck and also with it. And with that confidence, he started playing better. So I think those two players, Roenick and Filip Zadina, are the two players that I saw take the biggest jump this year.
And Ken, naming those two players, Filip Roenick and Filip Zadina, do you think they've kind of locked in their spots as Red Wings? Do you consider them Red Wings for next season?
Right now, I'd have to say, yeah. I think Zadina has shown the management core and the coaching staff that he can play in the National Hockey League. He started picking up his game in Grand Rapids. So obviously they're going to take another good look at him. If he doesn't come through with, if he regresses a little bit, obviously they can send him back to Grand Rapids. But I think he's got the heart and desire and the will to play in the National Hockey League right now. I think he's learned a lot. He's played in all different situations in Grand Rapids, and that's only going to help his development. So I really believe that he's going to be ready next year or when the season resumes.
I have to agree with you there, Ken. And Art, we're actually going to take a question from the Tigers YouTube. And this one's interesting. I think you'll enjoy answering this one, Art. His name is Vlad, and he asks, what's Art's favorite Leonard Cohen track?
Well, I'll tell you, there's so many. I would probably say that my favorite Leonard, I like that, Suzanne, first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. I'll tell you what, I was into Leonard Cohen, but where I really got into him is Jennifer Warnes released an album, I think it was back in '87, of Leonard Cohen standards of classic songs. And I just love that whole album. And, I'm really terrible on names of songs unless they're like Beatles songs, but I like the one that's the blue raincoat. I mean, I like virtually everything. I've seen him. I saw him. You know, he passed away a couple of times. So, geez, I would say it's really, really tough to say which I would like. I just thought that, you know, much like the way Bruce Springsteen has been compared as being a poet, I think, you know, obviously Leonard Cohen was right there, you know, just a great and tremendous talent. I can't really pick one, to be honest with you. I mean, when you turn them on, each song is so vivid, and the imagery and what he creates is, you know, it's kind of a mind trip, each and every tune. And, you know, it's like one of those things. And, you know, and I know Ken's a big art aficionado, but when you look at your favorite artist or your favorite painting, each time you go back to it, you see something different. You know, there's something that you didn't see, or it inspires you in a different way. And I really think, and that's what great artists do, by the way. I think that's what great art does. And I think that that's what Leonard Cohen does. For me to limit it down, I know it sounds like I don't know any of his songs, but I really do. But it's, I just can't pick one. I just really can't pick one. I mean, I just think he's great. You know, if I've got a turntable, maybe, you know, I'll start playing some tunes in the background here, and we can hear a little bit of Leonard later.
That was a great question, Art. And of course, always a great answer from you. I think we always get a great answer from you. Now let's move on to our third question. This one is for Ken. Sheila from St. Clair Shores asks, is it likely that the Red Wings will name a captain this year, Ken? I thought this was a really interesting question to get your thoughts on because of the situation that happened last year. I think a lot of people expected Dylan Larkin would be named captain, but Steve Yzerman went with 4 alternates. So I'm excited to hear your answer. Take it away.
Well, first of all, I want to say hi to Sheila. She's right in my backyard here in St. Clair Shores. Probably lives on the water and is a boater, so that's good. You know, this is a really good question, and I really don't know how to answer it, honestly, because I can see both sides of the equation. And I know a lot of people wanted Dylan Larkin to be named captain. But you know what? I don't know how soon Steve Yzerman's going to name a captain. And I'll say, and this is the reason, and this is just my opinion. It's not based on fact or what anybody else said. You know, when Steve Yzerman first came here, the team was struggling, and they had a 40-point season, and he was a young player. And he was a captain of this Red Wing team, and that's a lot of added pressure, especially when you're on a team that's still rebuilding and still learning at how to win. And there's still many more pieces to this puzzle that needs to be put together before they actually get better and start winning and make the playoffs and eventually win a Stanley Cup. So if you name a captain right now, and let's just say you named a captain last year and you went through the season that the Red Wings have gone through in 2019, 2020. Can you imagine the pressure on a youngster like a Dylan Larkin that has to face the music each and every game and talk to the media and answer questions why this team isn't performing the way maybe it should be performing or why they're losing so much? That is a lot of pressure. So I think, in my opinion, Steve went through this as a young player, and he doesn't want that on any player right now on this Red Wing team. So I think you need to select a guy that's going to be mature enough, and it has to be the proper timing. And right now, I just don't know still if this is the proper timing to name a captain. So to answer your question, I really can't answer the question, but those are my thoughts.
Art, if you can keep this one quick, I know that you want to chime in on this one because for a long time, you've been saying that this is Dylan Larkin's team. So what are your thoughts on this question?
Well, I would like to see Dylan Larkin be captain. I think the only other guy that's going to be in the running, and he's even younger than Dylan, would be Mo Seider, perhaps. You know, he has shown a leadership, you know, wise beyond his years. So I would definitely, I agree with what Ken said. I think that Steve's going to really be measured about this. But I do want to say, Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen song, Hallelujah. I mean, that's like the standard, but you know, I couldn't think of the name. So let me get that out. I mean, that is, you know, that's been covered by virtually everybody in the world. So that's, you know, that song, and Tim Buckley's version by far is the best, unless you like Leonard's. But aside from that, Yeah, it has to be Larkin, right? Yeah, I would. Who else is it going to be? I mean, come on. The guy's leading them in scoring. He gives his heart and soul. He speaks every night. He's from here. He understands the whole Detroit and, Southeast Michigan psyche. And I mean, Steve, come on. It's got to be Dylan, right? I don't know. Yzerman always listens to me. So his kid very well knows.
I'm not surprised by that at all. Let's move on to our last question, guys. And I want both of you to answer this one. Ken, you're going to start. Give me your favorite recent road trip memory. And this one is from Andrew in Royal Oak.
Well, there have been so many good road trips that we've been on, and we've had a lot of fun. I'm sure Art will talk about our playoff venture in Vancouver one year. That was a lot of fun. But recent memory, I would have to say that we were up in Traverse City for training camp this year, and it was the first 2 days of regular practice, and Sunday was the off day, and some of the PR people and social media people had things to do, but we all gathered at Buffalo Wild Wings. We had a little group party. The PR staff was there, Andrew from social media, Art showed up a little bit later on, and we were all watching week 1 of the NFL season. And obviously the Lions played their first week 1 game against the Arizona Cardinals, and the Lions were winning that whole game. And we're having a good conversation, and we're not really paying attention too much to the football game. Every now and then we'd look up, but we were talking mostly about the team, the Red Wings, and, just talking, having good conversation. All of a sudden we look up at the TV and it's a close game. And the Lions had this play. It was a 3rd down, and I think 4 or 5. They got the first down, and it was late in the 4th quarter, and everyone's kind of celebrating. And then all of a sudden the play comes back, and we're all wondering, well, why did the play come back? Well, one of the coaches on the Lions called a timeout. And wouldn't you know it, the next play, it was a 30-yard pass to Galladay. It was incomplete. The Lions had to punt. The punt was blocked. Arizona came back down. And there's a look at me and Andrew from social media. That Art's in the background there. It was just so typical of how the first game went and how the season went from there on with the Lions. And it was just not a fun scene, but we did have a lot of conversation. We did have a lot of fun. But Art showed up late, and of course he had to give his 2 cents, obviously.
Well, as you can tell, I was so upset I was ordering a beer. I didn't really even care. I was actually with the Red Wings prospects then. They had visited the Humane Society that day, and I was writing a story about that. Thank heaven it was like a 4 o'clock start. But, that's the one thing, I don't think Ken wants me to reveal this, but during the NFL draft, if you looked, when King Roger was like trying to get the fans, it's a Lions pick, and they showed that screen of all those Lions fans, Ken was up in the upper right-hand corner with his face painted on a little blue and silver. So that's how much he loves his Lions. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I used to have major meltdowns about the Lions' losses. I mean, they're well documented. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. But after a while, I just can't bring myself to, it was either walk away from the Lions a little bit. I still would like to see them do well, certainly, or have a major stroke and, meet your maker. So I had to make a choice. They were just not good for my health there at the end.
My road trip.
I was going to say, though.
I was just going to say, real quick, one of it, when we're on the road, a lot of times, like when the Tigers were in the World Series and we're playing hockey, we all want to watch and see what the Tigers do or what the Pistons do or what the Lions do. And that same season, later on, we were in Vancouver, and it was a Monday night game, and the Lions were in Green Bay to take on the Packers. And we were all excited because, there are arch rivals, nobody likes the cheeseheads and everything. And the Lions had that game won, but the officials took it away. And I remember I was so upset after that game. I got on Twitter. I guess I shouldn't have started venting, but I'm telling you, that ruined my whole season then. I mean, it was like unbelievable. And it was great to get out on the road with everybody. All the Fox people were there in the same place, and we just had one really good party, but the finish wasn't what we wanted.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about Ken. He has so much pull within this organization that up in Traverse City, when the Lions played Monday night, the Red Wings were scheduled to play a prospects game at the same time of the Monday night kickoff. And he actually convinced Ken Holland to switch the game time so he could watch the Lions game. Remember, it went from like 7 to 4 o'clock or something. So Ken is Mr. Lion. He definitely is. I think if you were to take Rory, unveil Rory, it would be Ken Cal. It would have to be Ken Cal. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I don't know where we are. It would be Kenny. Real quickly, and mine's kind of serious. This year, the road trip, I ended up going to New York. The Red Wings played the Rangers on November 6th, and November 5th is my birthday, and we traveled on that day. And I met my old college roommate, very good, dear, close friend of mine, Jared Yzerman, who lives in New York. I met him. I was a sophomore at Michigan, and he was a freshman. We've been friends ever since. And he said, hey, I got a birthday surprise for you. And he picked me up at the Red Wing Hotel. We took the subway, and, not to get, and maybe because I'm thinking of Leonard Cohen now, and he's a pretty serious artist, but he took me to Ground Zero, and I had never been there before. And and I put it on Instagram, some pictures and stuff, but I would say that especially every American, and, it was twilight, and then it got dark, and the fountains and what they have done down there. I mean, it was just breathtaking. It was inspiring. It was sad. It was the gambit of emotions. So I would say, and I have a lot of fun on the road, whether it's with boss man Andrew Kristoff or, of course, Kenny Cal, who, we go back to a days at Michigan. So I would really think that, but this year, the one thing I do remember more than anything was going to Ground Zero on my birthday, the day before the Red Wings played the Rangers. And then Jared took me to some high-end burger bar, which you had to wait hours to get into. I mean, it was a burger bar, and, it's Manhattan, so it's got to be real cool. It's the chic place to go. And the big thing why this burger was like such in great demand, and this is a Tuesday night, by the way, and it's still, you had to wait hours to get in. They have an egg on it. You have a fried egg on your burger, and that was like the, is it piece de resistance or whatever they say? Well, that was it. But it was fun. But Ground Zero, it just takes your breath away, truly.
It does. Great memories, you guys. And Ken, we're sorry for making a little fun of you there, poking some fun at you, but hey, we had to, right?
That's all right. We got to get you on a road trip, Daniela. We got to show you the town.
Yeah, we do. I totally agree with that. Hopefully soon, you guys. And Ken, as always, thank you for joining us for the mailbag, and we will have you back very, very soon. And we also want to say a big thank you to our friends at Little Caesars for delivering us the mailbag. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, a toasted Parmesan and Asiago crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. I swear, that one always makes me hungry. I might have to get myself a Little Caesars pizza today. I'm telling you, that always makes me hungry. But guys, we still have a lot coming up for you on today's show. We're going to talk to Michael Fulmer, and we've got John Casey and much more. But for right now, we're going to catch up with Carly, thanks to our friends at Miners.
Thanks, Daniela. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. Today, I'm joined by the founder of York Project, Josh York. Welcome, Josh. How's it going?
Hey, Carly. It's going well. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Good, of course. Thanks so much for being on. Can you tell me about York Project and what got you started?
Yeah, York Project's a social streetwear clothing brand that I started 7 years ago. And with every sale, I wanted to give back to the community here in Detroit. And so we took the model of Tom's shoes and started donating 1-for-1 to homeless shelters with every product that we sold. 7 years later, we have a store at 12 Oaks Mall. We have a store here in New Center, Detroit, which is where I'm at now. And we've donated over $100,000 to homeless shelters and people in need.
That's absolutely incredible. And I know you on a personal level, so it's so awesome to see you be so successful and give back to the community. And I've purchased items from you before, and it's very high quality clothing, and each purchase provides living essentials to the homeless in Detroit. So what made you get so involved in giving back?
Thanks. Well, thanks for the kind words. It's just kind of the way I was raised and the family I come from that we are very fortunate to have what we have. And it's just right that you pay some of that forward and provide or give to the next person in line. So it's always been ingrained in me since I was a kid that you should give back and volunteer and help people in your community. And so when I had a brand that was getting a little traction and I was able to give back with, it just kind of made sense that was what I was going to do with some of the good fortune that was coming my way, was to give back and make a difference in the community.
That's incredible. And can you expand on the donations that you do around the city? Like I know we mentioned the tote bags, but on the third Saturday of each month, you have a donation day. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So since we started, we actually didn't want to just donate money, but we actually wanted to physically get people involved and actually go and make donations in person. And a lot of times that goes even further, is having people there and really donating their time just as much as the monetary donation. But we donate at a field in Midtown Detroit, right by Little Caesars Arena, actually just a few blocks away. That it's in the Cass corridor, and we bring items like toilet paper, socks, bottled water, underwear, and we package it in a durable canvas tote bag that people can carry around with. And we donate every single month, the third Saturday of the month, like you said. We've been doing it for 7 years, and we partner with an organization called PB&J Outreach that provides food to people in need. And then we join them and provide other items that are commonly requested, but oftentimes are not donated. So that's how we felt we could make an impact in the community and continue to do so every month.
It's very admirable, Josh. And unfortunately, you currently cannot physically be at these donation days because of COVID-19. But I understand you shifted operations from social streetwear to strictly making masks right now during this pandemic. What made you do that?
Yeah, it was in late March that we noticed that there was a lot of different press around shortages in PPE for hospitals and other organizations. And we happen to have a ton of fabric, and I know the lights just turned off behind me, but there's rolls and rolls of fabric back there that we use to make our t-shirts and sweatshirts in normal business. But these items could really easily be converted into face masks and other PPE. So we just started prototyping these masks and not really knowing if anyone truly needed them yet, but just kind of, we had a hunch that there would be a need. And we ordered, I think, like 6,000 yards of elastic to do ear bands. And we just started making masks. And then very quickly we realized how much of a demand there was, and there was going to continue to be. So now we have 7 people here that work at our shop, and we're manufacturing masks 7 days a week for hospitals, nursing homes. We're donating thousands to homeless shelters, and just trying to use our skill set and what we had available to us to help out in this time of need.
How at peace do you feel with yourself when you know that what you're doing is helping those in need?
It's a good feeling, but also once you start doing something and giving back, like, you realize how much of a need there truly is, and it's hard to really fulfill that entire need. So it's really motivating to keep going and always try to do more and continue to grow our business and our operation so that we can then continue to do more and help more people. So at peace to a certain extent, but also always motivated to keep going.
That was an amazing answer. And the slogan associated with your brand is "Be the Change." What made you land on that?
I think that was something that one of my high school teachers always said was, that's a Gandhi quote, be the change that you wish to see in the world. But she always talked about that, and think globally, act locally, and you can be the change in your own community. And down as we continued to grow, my business partner in college at Michigan State actually said, what if we started to encourage people that, we're doing our best to be the change we want to see, but how do we encourage other people to be the change in their own lives and their own community? So that really kind of resonated with us and our team, as well as what we kind of wanted to project outwardly as a brand. So that became our mantra.
That's awesome. And what is your main goal? Like, what is your biggest dream? Where do you want the York project to go in the future?
My biggest goal is to create a great company to work for that can employ a lot of people in our community. And so to continue our donations, that's great. But at the end of it, to continue to maximize our impact, we have to build a big company that can sustain and can remain in business. And so the more people we can hire, and if we can make a good place to work and provide, a good living wage for people in our community, eventually we can just continue to do good. And who knows where we'll go. It's really changed a lot from just making t-shirts and hats to now we're making masks and soon medical gowns. And so what that looks like is going to continue to evolve, which is exciting, but just continuing to be the change that we think we can be in our community and doing good in the process and bringing more and more talented people from our communities along with us.
Yeah, buying and purchasing your items, it's definitely a guiltless purchase, because look at it this way, you can feel good about treating yourself because it's going to a good cause.
That's the goal.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Josh. I really appreciate it. I know you're staying very busy. And everyone, make sure to follow York Project on Instagram and check out their website, yorkproject.com. Josh, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
No, I think that's it. Please head to our website. We always need volunteers to join at our monthly donations. You can also make a donation for $5 and we'll donate one kit on your behalf at our monthly donations. And also check out our store here in Detroit and at 12 Oaks Mall.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much again, Josh. Keep up the good work. You're making us proud. Stay safe out there.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
Be the change. I love that. That was a great interview, Carly, and great to see a young entrepreneur like Josh doing what he's doing with York Project. Absolutely amazing. We're going to keep Carly with us for this next segment. It's time for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. And this one last week, I'm sorry, it was actually on Thursday. Art tricked me. He didn't trick Carly, but he got me, and I am redeeming myself today. That is happening.
I'm excited to see what today holds.
Right. The only good thing to come out of it is that Michigan State took your degree away from you, Daniela. So there was a positive.
Wait. Right here. It's right here.
Other side, Danielle.
I did that on purpose. Other side.
Really?
It's right here. It's hard to do, okay?
I'm trying to read it.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Those Wolverines have a hard time reading. Don't worry about it, Art.
Ooh, she got you, Art. She got you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, touche, Carly, I guess. So I'm going to fool you both this time. I know there's no way you're going to get this. Yeah.
Okay.
I have done my research.
Lay it on us,
I have
Art.
it right here. Right here. Okay, here they are. 2 are truths, 1 is a lie. Number 1, former Tiger pitcher, the last man to win 31 games in the major leagues, probably forever, the way pitching is now structured. But Denny McLain once performed as a musician on the Ed Sullivan Show. For both of you, Ed Sullivan was every Sunday night on CBS, Ed Sullivan did a variety show. The Beatles were on, the Stones. I mean, it was like must-see TV back then. Denny McLain, in his heyday, was a bit of a musician himself. But the thing about Denny is that he was such a good organ player that he would pitch the first game of a twilight doubleheader, which might come back now depending on, and then he would be playing the organ in the second game at Tiger Stadium. So Denny was a bit of an accomplished musician. Giving you a little bit of a hint there. Denny McLain once performed as a musician on the Ed Sullivan Show. Number 2, Isaiah Thomas was actually tackled by Arsenio Hall at an NBA All-Star game. And number 3, old number 25, D-Mac, Darren McCarty, was a contestant on American Gladiators. 2 are truths, 1 is false. What do you think?
Okay, who's going first? I have
Do you
no
want me to take
idea,
this one?
honestly. But
I gotta redeem myself, so.
You go first.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Daniel, you were full last time. Yeah, let's see if you can get that degree that's on the wall behind you. Let's see if you can get it back.
Gosh, now the pressure's on. Okay, all right. I'm reading these still. I feel like I have to go with Darren McCarty being a contestant on American Gladiators, just because I feel like I would know all about this if it actually did happen.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, I don't really know any of like the other two. I'm not quite sure about those, but I know that D-Mac probably wasn't on American Gladiators, just personally knowing him. I just can't see him. He will do a lot of things, but I just can't see him doing that. So I agree with Daniela. I think we're both going as the D-Mac statement
Both
is a
of our
lie.
degrees might be gone today.
I know.
So that's your final answer then. That is your final answer.
Yeah.
Final answer.
You don't want to change it.
Nope.
Well,
Stop it,
unfortunately,
Art. I know you're trying to do this on purpose.
Congratulations, Daniela. You are a Spartan again. And Carly, now you have a doctorate degree from Michigan State. Yes.
2 for 2.
Darren McCarty was not a contestant on American Gladiators. You know, Darren, knowing Darren like I would, you know, he would probably just say after halfway through, with his attention span, yeah, I could probably do this, but screw it. I'm just going to fall in the water tank or whatever, you know, whatever was going to happen. But yes, Darren was not. He probably could have won, though. He probably could have won. The correct answers are Danny McLean did perform on the Ed Sullivan Show playing the girl from Ipanema, which is a great, great, great tune. With his quartet.
Questions real quick. We got to just set some rules here about your statements. They've got to be from like a time frame that Carly and I would remember.
Well, you know, I mean, we can't go back to. I can't just go back to 2015. I mean, come on now. I mean, we have to make it a little challenging. But okay, he was with his quartet. I was Danny McLean's producer for many, many years, and I used to talk to him about this. He was on the same show where they had 1968 World Series opponent Bob Gibson on, a legendary pitcher in his own right. I know when they showed the replay of the seventh game of the 68 World Series, Gibson was against Mickey Lolich at that. McLean was also a spokesperson for the Hammond Organ Company, released 2 albums on Capitol Records, and made 2 other television appearances. Danny was really a celebrity back then. And as I said, winning 31 games, I think he was the first pitcher since Dizzy Dean did it back in the 30s. So that's a big thing. And the way pitching is today, they used to have 4 starters back then, and the bullpens weren't as prevalent as they are today. So Denny could be the last baseball player, last starting pitcher to ever win 30 games in the major leagues. Isaiah Thomas was tackled by Arsenio Hall at an NBA All-Star game. This is absolutely true. Hall was a celebrity coach for the Magic Johnson All-Stars in a game in LA. We can see it here. After Isaiah playfully wrapped up Michael Jordan during a breakaway, I don't know if it was that playful, considering what came out this weekend. Arsenio came off the bench to confront Thomas. We're seeing it right now. The show continued as Thomas continued their mock argument, to a point that Arsenio wrestled him to the floor, earning a technical foul. So, you know, all in fun. But there you have it. I do compliment both of you on getting it right. Seeing Darren, though, I mean, and now we've probably put ideas in Darren's head that he is going to try to get on American Gladiators. I don't know, Darren. I guess you're in better shape than you, but that would, you know what? I would watch that, though. I would watch that. So maybe maybe we'll get D-Mac on the show and try to get on American Gladiators. But there you have it. There you have. Bet you didn't know. But again, I compliment both of you for getting it right, primarily because you have no idea who Isaiah Thomas and Denny McLean are, I'm sure.
I did, though. I knew who they were. I just around to see these moments.
I'm hurt. I mean, you both got it right. I've been wounded a little bit, so I took a cheap shot at you, but I do apologize.
Well, good thing you will have another chance to get us on Thursday, okay? So you'll have to come back with some better 2 truths and a lie on Thursday. And a big thank you to our friends at Motor Casino for what you didn't know today and every day on the Word on Woodward. But while we got you, Carly, as I mentioned earlier in the show, you are manning all of the social media channels. And I want to know what you're finding out there. Have you seen anything interesting on social media, even in the past week?
Okay, so over the weekend, the Bernays announced that they're getting a puppy, which is really exciting. Makes me want one that much more. But Martine, Jonathan Bernays' wife, posted a hilarious and sweet video of Bernie in their new dog cage with their two kids, Brady and Tyler. So check out this video. It was really, one of those things where it's like, the kids really liked getting in the dog cage. And then next thing you know, you click next on her story and Jonathan's in it. But so they're excited. They're going to get a little girl. So check out this sweet face that they're going to pick up soon. And they are looking for name suggestions. Martine posted on her Instagram that you guys can send in some name suggestions. So I'm excited to see what they land on when they pick her up and to see them interacting with her. And I've wanted a puppy for so long. And this quarantine is really, really making me want to get one that much more with the amount of time I'm home. But I'm very excited to see them spend that family time together and now adding another little furry baby to their family. Back to you, Daniela.
Thank you for that, Carly. I got to say, Jonathan Bernier and his wife are like social media gold. They post some really funny stuff on there. So if you don't follow them on their social media channels, so make sure that you do. Again, thank you, Carly. We will see you later in the show. And guys, continue to submit your questions and comments on social media. Carly will find them and we will try to answer them later in our Let's Socialize segment. So that's coming up later in the show, but we've also still got interviews with Michael Fulmer in our Brush Street Beat segment. And then our headliner is Sean Casey today. So this is going to be a great, great show still. And we're going to pivot right now into our Downtown Hockey Town segment. And I want to encourage you guys to get involved with this one, wherever you're watching. If you have an opinion, if you have even a question for Art about this one, it's going to be some good discussion. So Art, I know you're ready for this subject, right?
I am definitely raring to go. And I would call the Bernier puppy Muffin.
Presented by our friends at Labatt Blue Light. And today's subject, Art, is going to be the best Red Wings that are not in the Hall of Fame yet. And there are quite a few of them. And I know some of them aren't eligible yet, but coming up within the next couple of years, you got guys like Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, Pat Verbeek, Curtis Joseph. We're going to hit on all of them, but let's start with Henrik Zetterberg. Art, what do you think about Zetty's future in the Hall of Fame?
Well, you would think that he would be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he has over 960 points. He's a plus 60, 64 career game-winning goals. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy in the 2008 playoffs as the MVP. He won the King Clancy Award for humanitarian things that he has done during his career. I find it hard to believe that Zetterberg will not be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And let's be clear about this. This is the Hockey Hall of Fame. It isn't the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame. So, his international career, what he was able to do internationally, all of that kind of comes into play. From discussions that I've had, though, many people that I have talked to believe that Zetterberg is a marginal Hall of Famer, that he may not make it, or it might take him a few times. I don't know if a veterans committee or the history committee or whomever will eventually get him in there. I would think that he would be a shoo-in just because of his statistics. He averaged almost 20 minutes a game, captain. And it's really interesting. You go on some websites and they'll talk about different players and who they compare to, who their stats compare to. And Henrik Zetterberg's stats, and he is compared to that way to Mark Messier, Hall of Famer, Sergei Fedorov, Hall of Famer, and obviously Adam Oates, Henrik Sedin. The Sedin twins should probably get into the Hall of Fame. So I think without question, Henrik Zetterberg does belong in the Hall of Fame. His number is going to be hanging in the rafters at Little Caesars Arena sooner rather than later. But I am quite surprised when you talk to the hockey pundits that many of them believe that maybe Z might not, it might take him a while in order to get to the Hall in Toronto.
All right, let's move on to Pavel Datsyuk. It kind of was Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk were always kind of a 1-2 punch there. So I have to think if you believe that Henrik Zetterberg is going to be in the Hall of Fame, you definitely believe Pavel Datsyuk is going to be in the Hall of Fame as well. And I believe it's this year that he becomes eligible.
Right. The Magic Man is definitely in. I cannot see him not being in. He's won 4 Lady Bing Awards. He won 3 Sulkies. He has 918 points during his Red Wing career, 953 games. Probably would have played over 1,000 games in the league if he didn't decide to go back to Russia. Most likely would have reached 1,000 points in a Red Wing uniform. He's a plus 249, 51 game-winning goals. His stats are compared to Brian Trottier. That's the reason why Steve Yzerman wears number 19 is because of Brian Trottier. Bobby Hull, one of the all-time greats. Daniel Alfredson, who played for the Red Wings. So Datsyuk's a shoo-in. There's no question about it. I can't see how you can leave him out of the Hockey Hall of Fame. Sheer talent alone, what he was able to do. Ones that multiple Stanley Cups. And the interesting thing about Datsyuk is that I can remember when he first broke in, I think he went like 26 games or so, playoff games, without scoring a goal. And I can remember the talk back then was, oh wow, this guy might be a bust or he's not a big time player. Well, we all kind of mature at different points, and I'm still working on that. But I would say that without question, Pavel Datsyuk, it might have taken him a little while in the playoffs to get going, but he is one of the all-time great Red Wings, and truly, just on the Magic Man. I mean, that's all you need to know. He definitely belongs in the Hall.
Let's take a look now at Pat Verbeek, Art. This one is pretty interesting. He's one of 3 players that is over 500 goals and over 2,000 penalty minutes. So I think that puts him in kind of his own category, right? Of a player that is a really great goal scorer, but also super physical. And what do you see for his future in the Hall of Fame?
Well, yeah, I can't figure it out. He has, like you said, he has over 1,000 points. He played 1,424 games, a lot, 522 goals as we're seeing, 540 assists, 1,062 points. He, along with Grand Rapids Griffins player Dominic Turgeon, his father Pierre Turgeon, also has over 1,000 points and is not in the Hall. I don't know what the criteria is. You would think that 1,000 points would be good enough, but Pat Verbeek belongs in the Hall for one reason only. Without question, the best nickname ever in hockey, Little Ball of Hate. I mean, you have to put the Little Ball of Hate in there. Glenn Anderson, Doug Waite, Kazi is another player that statistically he has been compared to. I think that degree of goal scoring ability and toughness makes him worthy of the Hall of Fame. Now, remember, another former Red Wing that took a while to get into the Hall was Dino Ciccarelli as well. And so for whatever reason, and maybe it was because of his abrasive style, maybe he, ticked some players off, or maybe some people that are voters for the Hall did not like the way he played the game, or thought maybe he took too many liberties. I don't know. But I think as time wears on, Pat Verbeek, the Little Ball of Hate, definitely deserves to be in the Hall. Whether that happens or not is anybody's guess. When you get into these kind of discussions, Danielle, after a while, you just don't know. Because you don't know what people are thinking. You would think that, how many times did you think that, regardless of the Hall, that this player was going to be a unanimous choice? And some jackass decides, well, I can't do that. I'm going to be different, or they I'm going to not even put him on my ballot. Come on, man. If the guy deserves to be in there, then do it. But ego is involved both ways by voters, and maybe the ego of the player rubs some people the wrong way. But Little Ball of Hate, you're a Hall of Famer in my book.
Maybe they can actually put Little Ball of Hate instead of just putting Pat Verbeek. So instead of seeing that on the ballot, maybe they just see Little Ball of Hate, and that will help.
He was an ornery SOB. I've got to say that. But I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch. And but that nickname, without question, one of my all-time favorites in any sport.
All right, Art, our last 2 that aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. This one makes it interesting, okay? So we've got Curtis Joseph, and we're going to talk Chris Osgood after that, but let's start with Joseph. 19-year NHL career, only 2 seasons with the Red Wings, but definitely a solid argument can be made to see him in the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's seventh all time in career wins, 454. He played on some real subpar teams there for a while. I remember one year he actually just like walked away. I believe it was from the St. Louis Blues in a contract hassle. I remember having on the old Ice Time show, and he was like hanging in Las Vegas working out. But goals against rather high, but then again with the competition, 2.7 career save percentage of 906. He had 51 shutouts. Never won a cup, but his statistically, he's compared to Patrick Waugh, Tony Esposito, Rogie Vachon. All of them are, in the Hall of Fame. I'm surprised that Curtis Joseph isn't in the Hall for one reason and one reason only. He's a Maple Leaf for the most part. When he broke down, when he left Toronto to come to Detroit, I am surprised. Will he get in? I think eventually he will get in. I think just based on the teams that he played for, the amount of victories that he has, I think that, someday Curtis Joseph will be in the Hall of Fame. But I think because of the way Chris Osgood has been treated, I think it's a difficult sell right now. If you don't put Ozzy in, how can you put in Curtis Joseph? I just don't think you can. And I think that certainly, and I know we're about to talk about this, but Chris Osgood deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. No question about it.
Why don't you elaborate on that, Art? Because I know you're passionate about the fact that you think Chris Osgood should be in the Hall of Fame. And he's one of only 13 goalies that has over 400 wins on his career. And the other ones are either still playing already in the Hall or they're named Curtis Joseph. So you got to make the case that Chris Osgood deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I look at it. If the Red Wings would have won Game 7 in 2009 and then had back-to-back cups, he would have won the Conn Smythe Trophy, and we're not having this conversation. He's in the Hall of Fame as we speak right now. I mean, look at it. 401 wins, 216 losses, 95 ties, 50 shutouts, goals against a 2.59, save percentage 905. His goals against is better than Curtis Joseph's. His save percentage, they're almost even. But I really think where you have to look at it, and maybe the determining factor, he won the Jennings Trophy, fewest goals allowed, with Mike Vernon, and I think he and Hasek might have won it one year, was the second time. He won 3 cups. But I think the thing about Ozzy, and this is what people tend to forget, he was 74-49 in playoffs. His save percentage was 916. I mean, he was a better goalie in the playoffs statistically. Granted, he didn't play as many games, obviously, as he did in the regular season. But Chris Osgood was a big-time money goalie. I mean, he gave up some doozies in the playoffs, Jamie Langenbrunner or Al McInnes, got shots from I know one series in Dallas, he gave up a really bad goal, I think in overtime that ended it. I think it was Jamie Langenbrunner gave up the goal. And the next game in Detroit, he got a shutout. That's what makes Ozzy great. That's what makes him a cut above. He was unflappable in the net. And I think, but he's one of those guys, Daniela, that makes great conversation. And the reason he makes great conversation is you're going to hear this for a month of Sundays, is that, look at the team in front of him. He played on some of the greatest teams. Well, one of my all-time favorite players, Kenny Dryden, great goaltender. I think he played 9 years and won 7 cups or something. But those Montreal Canadian teams that he played on are some of the greatest in hockey history. Coached by Scotty Bowman. The Red Wings won 62 games. I know that Tampa won last year 62 and tied that most victories in a season. And then the Red Wings had 131 points, which was the second most because those Montreal teams that Ken Dryden played on had 132 points. I mean, they were stacked, they were loaded yet, and they won a lot of cups. I mean, they were that good. But and I'm not comparing Chris Osgood to Ken Dryden, but what I'm saying is that Ken Dryden would be the first guy to tell you, and he has, I played on some really good teams. Okay, maybe Ozzy played on some good teams. He still had to stop the puck. So and this is something that I get into, not drag him down fist fights or anything with people because I'm a man of peace. But I will say that this is something that I really, really get upset about because Ozzy does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And not only his overall career numbers in regular season, you throw in his playoff numbers, and again, and again, if they would have won, and I know it's a big if, but if they win in 2009, he wins the Conn Smythe as the MVP of the playoffs because he was outstanding 2 years in a row, 2008, 2009. Chris Osgood was a rock in net, a rock. And he wins the Conn Smythe. He wins back-to-back cups for the Red Wings. You know, when he's on the in the fourth quarter of his career, so to speak, he's in the Hall right now. You know, will this injustice ever be? And, you know, you talk to Ozzy. He says he doesn't care, but he deserves to be in. I think hopefully someday, you know, the powers that be, whoever make up these decisions, will realize that there's a name missing in the Hall, and that name is Chris Osgood.
Dang, Art, can we get you on the selection committee? I think you've made some really solid arguments today.
Well, you know, I mean, I'll tell you what, Brendan Shanahan, just to go off here, Brendan Shanahan didn't make it on the first ballot. He had to wait till the second year. And, you know, why? You know, you can't figure it out. And I just think that sometimes, and, you know, and I'm not going to say that, but if somebody rubs you the wrong way, when you're trying to do something in the Hall of Fame, or I don't understand when you look at statistically and what they've done and what they've accomplished, why some guys are like in right away. You know, Nick's a given, you know, Steve's a given, Sergey was a given, you know, some of the, you know, immortals of the game. Well, Brendan Shanahan's kind of in that category too. And it took him, you know, it took him 2 years to get in. And, you know, and you know, a guy like Chris Osgood, you know, hopefully the only good thing is that his children are old enough now that, well, they'll appreciate it. You know, Daddy's in the Hall, and, you know, he can take him to Toronto at the induction ceremony and, you know, have a nice, you know, he, Jenna, and the whole family can have a nice little weekend there. But honestly, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And why Shanahan took two years to get in and not one, I don't get that either.
Well, we're going to have to bring this subject up again and get some fans involved in it. I like this discussion. Great debate. And Art, you made some very, very valid points. So I want to thank our friends at Labatt Blue Light for bringing us the Downtown Hockey Town segment for today. And now we're going to get into talking about the Tigers with our Brush Street beat. And we've got a really cool interview with Michael Fulmer. Dan Dickerson is standing by with him right now.
Well, it's time for our weekly conversation, and this week, as we keep updated with Tigers really around the country right now during this suspension of play, we are pleased to be joined by Tigers pitcher Michael Fulmer. Michael, how are you? Where are you right now with Kelsey and your son Miles, who just celebrated his first birthday?
Yeah, we're all still down here in Lakeland right now. I'm lucky to be able to get to go into the facility still trying to rehab and throw some pins and get back to baseball.
So yeah, and you're really one of the few, right? Because it's kind of been shut down for any sizable groups, but because you're rehabbing from Tommy John, you're allowed to go in.
Yeah, I think it's the whole medical rehab restriction. Basically, it's just me and Chang from spring training. He can't go back home to Taiwan, so we're just in there every single day during the weekdays and trying to get a little baseball done.
So tell me, this has been, I mean, we kind of all take Tommy John surgery for granted. That's, yeah, you just, you know, you pop that tendon in right in the elbow and everything's good to go and everybody comes back fine. But it can be a tedious process, can it? What's been the hardest part for you, and how do you feel it's been going in terms of getting back to, as you say, on the mound throwing bullpens?
Yeah, it's been going well. Obviously, it's just the time frame, I think, is the biggest hurdle to get over. And, you know, you hear 14, 16 months, it's a long time. You know, it's a season and a half. And last year was really a struggle for myself. But, you know, just thanks to trainers and physical therapists and strength coaches and all these guys that are down here with me right now to kind of devoting their time to help me get back into shape.
Does it seem crazy that it's been a year? As I mentioned, Miles celebrated, your boy celebrated birthday number 1. It had to be kind of fun to be there for that.
Yeah, me, myself, and my son both celebrated our birthdays this spring and under quarantine. So Not much we did, but Miles still got some gifts and some cupcakes, and we try to do it up the best we could for his first birthday. I'm just kind of glad he didn't remember it, or won't remember it for that matter.
Tell me how you felt spring training was. I mean, you obviously not participating in games, but you were able to be back with your guys again. That had to be a good feeling.
It was good to see everybody again. You know, I've been down in Lakeland since November, so I've gotten to know Lakeland pretty well for a long period of time now. But just to see everybody and even the new teammates and coaches and staff, it was good to kind of be back in the mix of everything. I think last year I went and visited the team twice. I think once in Detroit and once in Texas. So just got to see them a little bit, but it was nice getting over to see everybody again.
What have you missed the most about baseball and being able to get on the mound every 5 days?
Just that. I think just getting out in front of the fans and taking the bump once every fifth day. But you know, we're working really hard down here, and you know, I'll be back sooner rather than later. And I'm excited with all the work we've been putting in and trying to get myself better, healthy, and getting ready for a long career.
Your surgery was at the end of March of last year. I remember at the time, I saw you just a few days before that surgery. You were determined to be on the short end of the 12 to 16 months, 14 to 16 months, I think you said. Where do you feel you are right now? I mean, if this was a regular season, what was your timetable? I mean, has that changed at all? What are your thoughts on kind of where you are so that fans get a feel for when you might be back?
Yeah, we're right on schedule. There has been no setbacks because of this whole quarantine thing, and everything's been going very, very smoothly. I'm very happy with where we're at right now, and I've been on the mound. I've been throwing bullpens. You know, I think I am scheduled to face hitters here in 3 weeks to a month. So that's some exciting time. I just don't have any hitters to throw to.
Was there a particular moment along the way as you were rehabbing that you're like, because like you said, there's a long process that you're like, okay, as you were throwing, I remember you saying that you're cautious when you first start to throw, where you're like, okay, this is good. It feels good. I know that I'm going to be able to get back on a mound at the major league level.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff going through my mind every single day, just how to try to get better and how to be more effortless with my mechanics and more technical with what I need to do, especially lower body wise. Just trying to change a few things where I'm not putting so much pressure on my elbow anymore. So we're trying to get more power out of the hips and legs, which we're doing a good job of, and trying to limit the stress on the elbow. So it's kind of me learning almost new mechanics, just trying to be a little bit more effortless and less stress on everything.
I know that, yeah, this has actually been good in the sense that it allows you to clean up some things with your mechanics, right? In terms of that right knee and how you push off and how you're putting pressure on that knee. I mean, you were able to do some things, weren't you, that have you feeling very confident about where your mechanics are as you get ready to get back to action?
Yeah, I've probably thrown, I don't know, 10 to 12 bullpens now. They've been going great, and just the stress and pressure off my knee with the mechanical adjustments that we've made, it's just been unbelievable. You know, I didn't think I could throw a baseball like that, and you know, we'll just got to keep working toward the performance aspect of it. But right now, I'm 100% pain-free and happy with the way everything's going.
So it becomes intriguing with play suspended, and we're obviously looking at a shortened season. And let's face it, nobody knows right now when that season might start. But it seems kind of intriguing for you that all of a sudden, instead of missing a good portion of the season, you might be getting close to, correct me if I'm wrong, coming back by the time, let's say the season started in, let's pick a month, July. All of a sudden, you could have a much bigger impact on the season than maybe it appeared back in March.
Absolutely, and that's the biggest thing. You know, I want to be ready by the time the season starts back up, whenever that may be. Like you said, no one really knows, but as of right now, I'm just sticking on my timeline and progressing each and every day, each and every week, and trying to stick to it as best as I can. So when that second round of spring training comes around, I'm hoping to be integrated and a part of that to where I can at least help build my pitch count. But the thing with coming back is from Tommy John, you can't just hop into big league games. You have to prove that obviously your stamina, your pitch count is built up. So you got to start off by playing inter squads and building your pitch count there and learning if your performance side of it is good. You can be pain free, but you still got to go out there and be the guy you were before. So that's just kind of the biggest thing right now, is just trying to find innings somewhere if my timeline reaches that point before everybody gets down here again.
And as you said, the most important thing right now, or at least 3 weeks from now, is to be able to face some batters. But truly, there is no way to do that during this time of shelter in place or physical distancing, is there?
No, not too much. I might have some of the staff step in there. We got Doug Teeter down here, Chris McDonald, Kevin Rand, Steve Chase, our PT Duncan Evans, and Corey Trimble. Those guys might have to wear a helmet and grab a bat and start hacking.
Please record it, will you?
I'll try my best.
Tell me what you think. We haven't really heard a lot from the players' perspective about some of the, I'm sure you're reading and talking to some of your teammates about some of the ideas being floated. And I think one of the more recent ones has been the idea of maybe everybody locating in two places, Florida and Arizona, at the respective spring training sites. What are some of the things as you read about this and read about how we come back and begin to reopen things? What do you think about what you're hearing and how workable it is from a player's standpoint?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, obviously everybody's safety is the number one priority, most important thing. And with that being said, you start to see states now starting to reopen, and I think the biggest thing for the baseball community and its fans is that there's so many people around the world that come, even just in organizations, just come for baseball and part of the team. So you have Latin Americans, Asians, obviously United States Americans, and it's just tough kind of trying to gather all those people again. So I think that we're not going to be moving much until a test comes out that's mass produced, that we can find out results in a matter of minutes or hours. I think that's our first step. But like I said, the safety is the most important thing for fans, organizations, staff, and players ultimately.
Well, we really look forward to the day that we do have spring training part 2, and that you'll be a part of that. In the meantime, Michael, stay safe, enjoy your time with your family, and look forward to seeing you in person in the not too distant future.
Thanks, Dan. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Take care.
Great to hear from Michael Fulmer. Thank you, Dan Dickerson, for conducting that interview. Art, I know we've touched on Michael Fulmer's process here and the progress that he's making a little bit in our previous shows, but it's great to hear him say that, hey, in 2 to 3 weeks, he's ready to face some batters. He might not have any batters to face, as he said, but it's good that he's getting to that point. And we're talking about him being ready potentially for spring training round 2 or the next opening day. What do you think he adds to the Tigers pitching rotation if he's ready?
Well, I think that if you bring him in and if he's healthy and he's raring to go, the depth on the starting staff is extraordinary. Obviously you begin with Matthew Boyd, then you go to Jordan Yzerman if he can stay healthy. Though he is still a good quality pitcher. I know it hasn't quite worked out in a Tiger uniform. A lot of health issues for him. Then you throw in Daniel Norris, and if Daniel Norris can stay healthy, and then Nova, and then Spencer Turnbull, who I really really like. I really think that starting pitching could be a strength of this team. These guys can all throw. Again, health. When you're talking pitching, health is the number one. That's the key. But if they're able to stay healthy and get into 6-7 innings of a ball before you get into the bullpen. And Michael Fulmer is a workhorse. If he comes back and is able to contribute, I think that is a huge boost. And then suddenly, the Tigers, at least starting wise, their staff is formidable. And Tommy John surgery. I really like this interview with that Dan did when Double D was talking to him. We look at now like Tommy John surgery that is just okay, put some disinfectant on it and a Band-Aid and you're fine. This is still a major surgery. Certainly they've perfected it over the years and the success rate is incredible. But that's something that it's still a long rehab, and I don't care who you are. And I'm think that as great as Michael Fulmer feels, until he gets on the mound, until he starts throwing and he gets in that simulated batting practice and gets into real games, I always think there's in the back of your mind, what if I'm that exception? What if I'm that 1% or whatever it is? And he seems obviously in a good frame of mind, but I think that once he gets back on the mound, he's feeling good. It is successful. If what he adds to the Tigers, I think is immeasurable. Really, I really do. He's that good. He's that competitive. And how can you not root for a guy like Fulmer? He's just former Rookie of the Year, great acquisition by the Tigers. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to contribute, and I hope he's healthy right away.
I think all Tigers fans feel the same way, Art. I hope that he's ready to go in time for spring training round 2, I guess we can call it. Thank you to our friends at McLaren for bringing us Brush Street Heat today and every day here on The Word on Woodward. Guys, we still got a lot of excitement coming up for you in the next 35 minutes or so. Sean Casey headliner interview is coming up next in just a couple of seconds here, but Carly Johnston is going to join us after that for our Let's Socialize segment. And if you haven't already, make sure you're putting your questions out there on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch, anything that you're watching the show on right now. Make sure you're asking questions. She's out there, and we're going to answer those in that next segment. But now it's time for our headliner presented by Miller Lite.
Thank you, Daniela. Time now for the headliner brought to you by Miller Lite. And let's bring in former Tiger, the mayor of the world, I guess we could say, which we need right now. And also from the MLB network, a jack of all trades. He's on every time I tune into MLB, he's there. But of course, I'm talking about Sean Casey. Sean, thanks for joining us on the headliner today. Really, really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
I want to talk to you. You're one of these special athletes, and it's probably more of a testament to your personality and just the person you are. But you're one of these gentlemen who came to the Tigers and bonded not only with that team, but with the city, kind of like you always had a Detroit soul. Why was it such an easy transition for you to come to Detroit?
Oh, man, I tell you what, I'm so thankful. I look back at my career, my time in Detroit. I don't know. It just, I feel like I fit right in right away. Leland and all those guys embraced me, all the guys on that team, Inge and Vance Wilson and Mags and Carlos Guillen and Jason Grilli. There was Nate Roberts. There was so many great guys. Even Verlander's rookie year brings back so many good memories. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't tough to have a connection with the fans. When I got traded there, that city was going absolutely nuts for the Tigers, and I just felt so fortunate to be in that situation.
When you look at it, you mentioned Jim Leland. He was always a Tiger. I can remember he was drafted by the Tigers. He was a catcher, spent a long time in the Pittsburgh organization, obviously. But when he came back to Detroit, what was it like to have him as a manager and play for him? Because he just seemed he seemed like he was, his bark was worse than his bite, so to speak.
Well, he was the best manager I ever played for. And I grew up in Pittsburgh too. So, he was like an idol to me. He was an icon to me, Leland, all those guys. When I came in, and Leland and Lamont and Lloyd McClendon and Raphael Belliard, Donnie Slott was our hitting coach. Andy Van Slyke was one of my idols of all time. So he was the first base coach. But Jimmy Leland was the best. He was just the best communicator. You talk about managing a clubhouse, managing a team. There was nobody better. He was like your dad. You're kind of scared of him, but you respect him so much, but you're a little scared of him, and you kind of feel like he's your friend, but he's not. He was able to ride that fine line, and I feel so fortunate. I still see him a lot because we both live here in Pittsburgh, so I still talk to Jimmy a lot and see him, and I think a Hall of Fame manager and one of the greatest. Probably the greatest manager I ever played for.
I want to, I hate to keep jumping around because I can go on and on forever about you and your career, but you're known as the mayor. And you're one of these guys, I think every baseball fan, when they see somebody, when you're playing first base, and I can remember the late, great Norm Cash was kind of a character at first, and you're always talking to the opposition. You're always talking to the player. I'm kind of wondering, is it, because you're always thinking as a fan and you're watching that, what the heck is Sean Casey talking about? What's he talking? I mean, do you have a book on these guys? Were you trying to throw them off their game? Are you just nice? I mean, what are you asking him?
Nah, I think if I'd have played center field, my career would have been over in a year. I need that interaction. You know what I mean? I needed to have that conversation. What's great is baseball is such a small fraternity. You get to know all these guys over the years. So, it was great for me. Like playing first base, I would have a chance, to really, talk to guys. The only time that ever happened, my rookie year when I was in Cincinnati, I remember Henry Rodriguez gets on first base, and I don't know if you remember when he was in Montreal, he used to throw Henry bars onto the field. And
I do.
Whenever he would homer, and I remember Ron Ballone was on the mound, and he was a lefty, and I was my third week in the big leagues, and I remember Henry Rodriguez singles, he gets to first base, and he gets his lead, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I was, so raw at that time, and I was like, that's really cool when they when in Montreal, when you hit a home run and they send those Henry bars onto the field. And he turned to me when I said that to say thank you. And right when he turned, Ron Ballone stepped off and picked over. And I caught the ball, and I was like, oh, my God, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to, distract you. But, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, you're out, But I was like, oh. That was the only time I ever distracted somebody. It was really, unintentional.
So you never use it as competitive advantage to throw a guy off. Only that one time. Just that one time, and I wasn't even doing that. Yeah, so I treaded very lightly as far as that went. Sean, we're obviously in unprecedented time, and every day I turn around, I'm trying to wonder when sports is going to come back. Once baseball does come back, I think Tiger fans are pretty eager to see this club a little bit. Some of the additions that they made with Cameron Maybin's back for the third time. Ivan Nova is going to be on the mound. Jonathan Scope and C.J. Cron, who are power hitters. They certainly look like they're going to be a better and more competitive club this year. Well, I think Scope's got a lot left in the tank. Nova on the mound. We'll see. Cameron Maybin, man, I was Mabes came up in 06. I think was it 06 or 07 when he went deep off Clemens in New York for his first home run. I mean, that was unbelievable. I'm glad to see him back there, in Detroit. I think Detroit right now is just, kind of in that rebuilding mode, and I think they're, I think there is definitely some excitement with some of the people that they've signed. Cron being one of them with a big power bat. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, how they are. But for me, I'd love to see, the Tigers get back and to compete in the Central there to try and get back and win that division. If Michael Fulmer is able to come back from Tommy John surgery, and depending on when the season starts, he could actually be ready to go if it starts in the middle of July or so. But if you look at the lineup with Matt Boyd and Yzerman and Nova, as we talked about, you add in Fulmer, Spencer Turnbull. Actually, their starting rotation looks pretty good. Well, you want to see competitive baseball too. Obviously, when you're a Tiger fan, those fans are so passionate and they love that club so much. Yeah, I think Zimmerman's a big key, man. I just think he's been so, he's had a tough go there in Detroit. I mean, man, but he still has great stuff. You'd love to see him have a career year. But Fulmer's a big key there, man. This guy came onto the scene and really showed us what he had. And, he's been banged up. But, if he came back and get back to the form that he was, when he first came into the big leagues, that's a big boost for that staff. But the staff is pretty good, no doubt about it. I don't know if the team as a whole could get to, the top of the division this year, but you're right. I think they're headed in the right direction. It's kind of funny because the bullpen always seems to be a question with Detroit, no matter if the team is, elite level or whether they're rebuilding or somewhere in between. Is that just the nature of the bullpen? I mean, I know that we sort of get spoiled with some aces, but overall, boy, I will tell you, if I and all the time, and I've always dreamt about being a professional athlete, the one position I would never want to be is a relief pitcher. I mean, that is just sometimes a thankless job. Yeah, I look back at that bullpen, too, that we had in 06. I mean, with Zumaya and Rodney and Grilly and Todd Jones, I mean, we were absolutely loaded. That's why I look back. But, the bullpen's such a wild card. You even go back to, a few years back when they were in the World Series with that rotation. Was it
with Scherzer in there and Verlander, and they had some absolute studs. And I think the bullpen sometimes is the toughest part to piece together. So, especially with a team like Detroit, man, if they could figure out a way to piece together a good bullpen, you could definitely win some games with the guys out there.
The middle of that lineup with Scope and Crone, I mean, they're going to hit some. They're going to hit some home runs this year, and power was a big question mark for the Tigers last year.
Well, I think they knew they had. You got to have some boppers in that park. When you got Scope and Crone to go along with Miggy, I mean, hopefully Miggy comes back and finds his power stroke. I think that's a big factor and gets in a little bit better shape. But when you add Scope and Crone, I mean, you're adding some thunder. And I tell you what, when you play at Comerica Park, you got to be able to bang because you got to have some guys that can really hit it out of the park. Those are two great additions to the middle of that lineup.
Well, you look at some of the young prospects. One of the guys that I'm really, really intrigued by, and he had a good spring, very, very young. The number one pick last year is a guy like Riley Green. The Tigers can catch a break on Riley Green. Suddenly that makes the rebuild accelerated even more, I would imagine.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I think with Riley Green, I think he's got a big time potential to be a big time big leaguer. And you know what? When you're a team like Detroit right now that has to hit on the draft, when you look at a guy like Riley Green, this kid's pretty special and has a chance to do some big things in the show.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing Riley Green. I think that he's going to be a Tiger for a long, long time. A couple of other guys. Look at the young arms that they have in the system. Casey Mize, Matt Manning, Tarek Schoolborough. The Tigers actually have a semblance and a core, I think, of good young arms, some nice young prospects that can make this team at least enjoyable and competitive to watch.
Well, Casey Mize, I mean, man, he's got some great stuff. And I think that, I think they've done a great job of drafting arms. And at the end of the day, in the big leagues, you win with big arms. And, we saw with Dombrowski what he brought, big power arms. And I think, Al's kind of doing that too, getting those guys. But I also, like I said, when we talked about before, Riley Green, that's a front line, middle of the order bat that they definitely need too.
All right. When, they have the number one pick, and I guess Spencer Torkelson, big hitting first baseman from Arizona State, or Austin Martin, the third baseman from Vanderbilt. But I look at Torkelson, and I wonder if he's related to the legendary monkey Peter Tork, because his real name was Torkelson. I'm going to say that all the time, and if the Tigers, he's going to be ad nauseum if the Tigers ever draft him. But where do you think they'll go with the first round pick? I mean, they, obviously power, big hitting first baseman, and Torkelson's numbers are astounding. I mean, the level he's at, to be hitting the ball like he is. But then again, Austin Martin is not shabby either.
Yeah, I don't really know where they're going to go. They'll go with probably the best player, at their pick, and but I'm not really sure where they're going to go. But I tell you what, I mean, for me, I'd love another big bat. I mean, you know what I mean? I think when you look at that lineup, when they signed Scope and they signed Crone, and Miggy's on the back end of his career, you put a guy like Riley Green in the middle of that order, maybe another big bat would be good for him.
I know we talked about Jim Leyland, but. Ron Gardenhire, the Tigers skipper here. In a strange sense, I know they're different personalities, but when I've talked to Leyland over the years and when I've talked to Gardenhire, and I talked to him a lot, especially when he was with the Twins too, they seem to be similar as far as they're professionals. They know what it takes to win, and they treat you guys fairly and like men, even though I know you might be a little bit apprehensive and treat him like your dad, but right. Ron Gardenhire seems to be the right guy right now for the Tigers.
Oh, Gardy's the best, man. I love Ron Gardenhire. Gardy's just, players have always respected Gardy and what he does and the guy that he is. So I think they have the right guy there in Detroit for what they're trying to do. And I think Gardy's always been great too with some of the young players, and he's always has the respect of the veteran players. So yeah, Gardy's no doubt the right guy there in Detroit.
I'm kind of curious when, Major League Baseball Network, MLB Network, you're on all the time. I mean, you must be, if you can't be playing baseball, I guess what you're doing right now has got to be the second best thing.
Oh, it really is. It's such a great transition for me from playing to going to MLB Network, because it's allowed me to stay in the game. It's my 12th year doing it, which is amazing. I can't believe it. But it's allowed me to stay in the game. I love baseball so much. and I don't have the stress of having to strike out in a big situation because I'm just talking baseball. So, so it makes it a lot easier.
I know what you mean. My whole career has been just talking for a living and talking sports. I mean,
Yeah.
like we're right in the same camp on that way. Another thing too, I just want to tell you, one of my all-time favorite collegiate nicknames, Richmond Spiders.
Oh yeah.
You gotta love it.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, don't get caught in the web, baby, because we're spinning webs nationwide. We always said that joke around about Richmond. Because they're like, "Where'd you go?" I was like, "Richmond Spiders, University of Richmond."
Well, hey, I'm a big Spiders fan, so Sean Casey, it's great. I'm glad that we caught you in our web here today on the headliner. Best of luck to you. As I said, I know that born in New Jersey, grew up in Pittsburgh. But buddy, you have a Detroit soul. You really do. Thank you for joining us today on the headliner. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I just want to say I love my time in Detroit so much, and those fans were wonderful. And I just, like I said, the memories I have in my career, my time in Detroit were some of the best.
All right, Sean, you take care. We'll talk to you real soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank Sean Casey again on the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, and it's also available for a delivery. Back to Daniela.
Thank you, Art. That was an awesome interview. Great to hear from Sean Casey. Not only did he have some high praise for Jim Leyland, Rod Gardenhire, and he thinks the Tigers are in a really good position right now. Art, I think you were right about him. He definitely has that Detroit soul.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, he's one of those rare athletes that when they get here, it seems like they've been here forever. He really, and you can tell he's such a great person. The thing, when we were talking off the air before the interview began, I asked him a little bit about Riley Green. He actually coached Riley Green on a team a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was an all-star situation. I can't really remember the particulars at this point, but he's a big Riley Green fan, 5-tool player. And he really thinks the Tigers have a fine there. So he was encouraged. I think that was the biggest thing. He was encouraged by what the Tigers have been able to do the last few drafts. If they add, I think they're going to go the big hitting first baseman. I'm just predicting. I think it's going to be Torkelson. But we'll see how that goes. So I mean, you've got to be encouraged. I think the thing, and I know I keep saying this over and over and over again, but the thing that's good about a rebuild is when you start acquiring young talent is watching it grow and become major leaguers, become Tigers. You can sit there, many, many years from now, Daniela, when you're, on the porch and telling kids to stay off your grass and stuff as an elderly lady, you can also tell them that you were there for Riley Green's first at bat, and that'll be cool. There's always something to that. I mean, I remember, certainly great Red Wing players, the first time they ever walked in the room, or, Chris Draper not wanting to ever answer his phone because he didn't want to go back to Adirondack, and you get to know him in that way, which is special because of the jobs that we have. But to be there from the ground up and watch this team being built and being grown, I mean, hey, that's a cool feeling. And, we're there right now with the Red Wings and with the Tigers. So that's something to look forward to.
Definitely. We're all looking forward to it. And another thank you to Sean Casey for joining us for the Brush Street Beat. But we're going to move on to our Let's Socialize segment presented by AAA. And we're going to bring back our girl, Carly Johnston, who has been monitoring the social media channels all day long. And I know she's all over that all the time. She brought us some great stories earlier. Carly, what do you got for us right now?
All right. Well, yeah, I've been following along with the viewers' comments and questions. I saw a couple regarding the Red Wings captain situation. So we're going to start off there. Art, this is a question that I feel like only you'll know the answer to. Hank on Facebook wants to know, what is the longest a team has gone without a captain? And then we see someone else was commenting that Dylan Larkin for sure deserves that C on his chest. So Art, let's start with the question first. What is the longest a team has gone without a captain?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know if there is a statistic about that. I think that a captaincy usually what happens is if you draft a nice young player, eventually, like Jack Eichel now in Buffalo, he's going to get the C. I know in Toronto, before they gave it to John Tavares, there was a question, should Austin Matthews wear it? I think probably only a couple of seasons. I'm guessing off the top of my head. I would say that most teams like to have a captain, whether you're taking a veteran leader who deserves to wear it, or a young player that's been cultivated in your organization when he's ready to take the team over and make it his team. So I would say that I do believe that, and it's up to obviously to the organization, the coach, the players too, to a certain degree. Certainly, the general manager, when they feel they have found that player and that they're ready to lead. I thought Ken Cal made a really good point earlier during the mailbag segment where he said, look, we're talking about very, very young men who are playing under a lot of pressure. And, I've said this about Dylan Larkin before. He's playing in his hometown. He's always played hockey basically in the state of Michigan. He was at the development program when it was in Ann Arbor before it moved to Plymouth. And he was a star there. Then he went and was a star in the Big Ten at the University of Michigan for a year, made the Red Wings at 19 and has been here ever since. And I think certainly with everything in his mindset, I do believe someday he will get that C. But I think that is something that most teams, they'll downplay it now and say, well, you don't really need a captain with the way that, the teams are and, everybody interacts and we're all good friends. And if somebody has something to say, in most rooms, they're more than willing to say it. They're more than comfortable to say it. But I think I would be surprised if a team went longer than 2 or 3 seasons at the very most without a captain. But that's something I'll have to look that up. Actually, I'm a little bit curious about that, but I don't think it's very long. I really don't.
And I know we have an interesting situation over here at the Detroit Red Wings organization, having Steve Yzerman as the general manager, who was once a young captain for the Red Wings. Daniela, do you think that Dylan Larkin deserves to have that C on his chest in this next season that we have looking forward?
Well, Carly, I think you kind of nailed it right there. With Steve Yzerman himself being the general manager, he knows what it takes to be that young captain. And I think if he had to name a captain this season, I think it would be Dylan Larkin. But to Ken and Art's points earlier in the show, you got to make sure that that's the right decision. And I don't think they're in any rush to name one right at this point. But I do think it would be Dylan Larkin if they did have to name one.
I'd have to agree. I know we have a lot of leaders in the locker room. All right, go ahead.
I think. Well, I'm sorry, Carl. I didn't mean to step on you there. I agree. I think a key too is this team gets younger, and it's going to get younger. As it gets younger, I think then it'll be more important for them to have a definitive leader. They have a lot of good veterans on this, and Dylan has said this. Nielsen, Justin, and Luke Glendening, who got the A this year. These are all guys that that everyone admires in the room. As the team starts skewing younger, as I said, I think then you're going to name a captain. When Jacques Demers decided to name Steve Yzerman captain, he thought that the team. It was Steve Yzerman's team. Obviously, I mean Yzerman was head and shoulders the best player on that team. When he first came in, you needed to convince Steve, believe it or not, that he was, but he definitely was. So it was time. We needed him. I wanted to give him that responsibility. I want him to be the leader of the team. I think as this team gets younger next year, if it's Edina, Michael Rasmussen comes in, although he's been here, Joe Valeno will be up. Giovanni Smith is going to be on this team. I think at that point, then, and Steve said this in his press conference on trade deadline day when he made the deal for Athanasiou for the with Ken in Edmonton. He said he's anticipating naming a captain for next season, and I think part of that is because it's going to be a younger team. They're going to need a definitive leader, and who better than Dylan Larkin? I think that's probably the way they'll go. Maybe a dark horse candidate, would be somebody like Luke Glendening, who was a preferred walk-on at Michigan. His sophomore year, he wore an A, and then he was captain of Michigan's hockey team as a junior and senior. So, he obviously knows how to lead. And I know that, Luke Glendening is respected not only in the Red Wing room, but, throughout the National Hockey League. He's a little bit of a pistol to play against, but he's certainly a top flight guy. But again, I just think that eventually when Steve decides to do this, it's going to be Larkin.
Exactly. Well, whoever and whenever that happens, I know they have big skates to fill following Zetterberg as captain. Okay, then moving on Twitter, Mill Newsfeed wants to know, which of the classic Tigers games are you most excited to watch next week on Fox Sports Detroit? So this question is for both of you, and Daniela, I'll start with you.
I am actually, all of these classic games have been incredible from the Red Wings and the Tigers. So I've actually been watching all of them. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to watch all of these coming up. I'm going to be watching, the 84 World Series is something that's really, really cool for us to watch, especially Carly, because obviously we weren't around for that. So when we can rewatch all of these games, I definitely take advantage of it.
How about you?
Well, my game is without question is Mark Fidrich. The Bird. Many years ago, I happened to play in a celebrity all-star game, which was the Red Wings versus the Tigers, and I was on the Red Wings team, believe it or not, and against the Tigers. And Mark Fidrich was at that game, obviously as a Tiger. And I can remember after the game, he came up to everybody and wanted us to sign a baseball. And I looked at him, I said, come on, man, you definitely don't want me to sign this ball. I'm just, at that time I was just some talking head on the radio. And he said, oh no, you were part of this team. I want, you're a member of it. I want you to sign it. So, embarrassingly, I signed it, but he was just such a good and decent man, taken from us far too young. But I remember the phenomena of the Bird, and the Tigers weren't a really good team back then. And, how he ignited and turned on this city. And not only turned on the city, he made the cover of a Rolling Stone, which they wrote a song about. Maybe not so much Fidrich making the cover, but making the cover of Rolling Stone. With Big Bird and just his, talking to the Bird, everything that he did, that Monday night game. I can remember it, like it were yesterday. And, watching Mark Fidrich and to see the impact that he had not only on the game, but on society, and what he really did at that time for a Tigers team was trying to find its way. Mark Fidrich, just one of the best ever, and just a great guy, and he had some arm problems, unfortunately. It's kind of sad to see where his career really would have gone if he didn't have some, as I said, arm problems, but that's the game I'm most looking forward to. And of course, anytime you can see a no-hitter, let's be honest. Justin and Morris,
right.
Those no-hitters, those are great too. But just the phenomena of the Bird, the phenomena of Mark Fidrich, and the person that he was, it doesn't get much better.
Love it. Okay, moving on. Last but not least, we have some birthday shout outs today. The Detroit Red Wings posted on their Instagram. Today is the legendary GOAT, the perfect human, Nick Lidstrom's birthday. So happy birthday to him. Also, we can't forget our current Red Wings player. It is also one of our alternate captains, Luke Glendening's birthday. So Art, can we hear a little happy birthday tune from you?
Well, I can give you a Leonard Cohen impression because he wasn't much of a singer, but great writer. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
I didn't know they were getting this kind of treat.
Happy.
Your eyes are shut. You're feeling it.
You. Not bad.
Oh, man.
I loved
Hey,
that.
what
treat for Nicholas Strum and Luke Glendening.
Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
interesting too that
Follow the guys.
we talked about.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carly.
I can guarantee you,
about both of them.
No, I was just going to say, Leonard Cohen is definitely turning over in his grave. I I can feel that right now. So sorry. Apologies to Leonard. You're the best.
I don't think you need any apologies.
Oh, Art.
Yeah, I was just
Daniela, what
gonna
were
say
you
it's funny
saying?
that it's Nick Lidstrom's birthday and Luke Glendenning's birthday. We're talking about the next captain of the Red Wings. Who better to model that after than Nick Lidstrom? And Art had mentioned Luke Glendenning, both really great leaders in the winged wheel there.
Right now, is Nick 50? I think he hit 50. That was the age that he was supposed to retire. I kept telling him over the years.
Milestone birthday.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, I always used to tell Nick, you can't retire until you're 50. And he always used to tell me, hey, when I'm 50 years old, I'm going to be sitting on the back porch having beers with you. And I said, no way. And if you've seen Nick, because he comes into town all the time, even though he lives in Sweden now, he looks like he can play. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, he could play. And I've always tried to entice him playing. Like if Mrs. Illich were to send you a blank check just with her signature on it, would you play? Just to sit on the bench, not do anything, just sit on the bench. And he laughs and says, well, maybe I would think if I didn't actually have to play. But I go, just the thought of you going back on the ice, I think would strike fear in the NHL opposition. But Nick, what a great, obviously a great player, great person. And 50th birthday. I can't believe that Nick is 50 years old. I mean, because I'm 35 and, I remember when he was working. No, I don't. No, I definitely don't look 35. That's for sure. Thank you, Carly.
Yeah, you do, Art. You don't age a bit. You age like fine wine, Art.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Two quality guys. Well, we really hope they enjoy their quarantine birthdays. We're wishing them both the very best day. And Daniela, I think it's time to wrap things up.
Well, thank you, Carly. That was such a fun segment. Always great to have you on here with our social media stuff and, really interacting with the fans. It's a great thing, guys. So always remember that when you're watching the Word on Woodward, you can interact with Carly via all of our channels, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. She's on there taking your questions to make sure that we answer them during the Let's Socialize segment. Thanks to our friends at AAA. And Carly, we'll see you later. Thank you so much. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, that was our last segment for today's show. I got to tell you, that was a really fun one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it today. I thought that, we had a lot of fun. Kenny's always a lot of fun. Carly, did you notice, was that a candle next to Carly in that mason jar, or was she drinking a little moonshine or something? Having a little bit of a
for Carly to be drinking moonshine. She's got to wait till at least 2:00 to be drinking the moonshine. So I'm going to go with candle for right now. That might change in an hour.
It looked like a mason jar. Yeah, I think in those mason jars. I know what people like to put in those mason jars. So who knows? I mean, just a little bit of. A little pick-me-up for Carly, I guess. She's always effervescent and bubbly, but I'm going to have to ask her about that. Maybe it was a candle. I don't want to cast aspersions on her character, but who knows? Maybe it was a little moonshine too.
Who knows? We'll have to ask her on Tuesday or on Thursday. We'll have to ask her what she had in the mason jar. And we were talking about some classic Tigers games that are going to be on Fox Sports Detroit. There's still some classic Red Wings games that are going to be played as well, including tomorrow. We've got the 97 Stanley Cup Final, Game 4, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You know that you want to watch all of those games because I think everyone knows what happens in every single one of those games. So, Art, I know you'll be glued to the TV for the next few nights here.
Well, watching it, certainly I can remember watching the Capitals Red Wings game, and what it gives you is it gives you appreciation of how great those teams were and how great individual players were. I haven't mentioned Steve Yzerman enough today. So there was a stat. They were playing Washington, and Adam Oates, who was his teammate, they were good buddies and teammates, as Red Wings. Adam Oates was playing for Washington. And, both great on faceoffs. Steve and Adam Oates, both great faceoff men. And there was a statistic that Yzerman had won 11 of 16 draws from Adam Oates, and he had won the last 9 in a row. And obviously, as the game goes on, the faceoffs become more important, especially the Red Wings were a puck possession team. So it just gives you an appreciation, like, man, when Steve was locked in, or when any of those guys locked in, they were just great. They were great to watch. And in that game, and I can't remember if it was, I think it was game 3. I think it was game 3. I can't remember. They all kind of blend into one, as the days do, as the hours do, as we're here at our stay at home. But just the competitive nature and drive. And when they gave that faceoff statistic against a quality faceoff guy like Adam Oates in a Stanley Cup final game, that just kind of rekindles your soul and your spirit, and you're ready to just go, man. That was good. That was good. So I love watching all of them. And as you said, Danielle, I think the Red Wings are going to win every one of those games, which means they're going to win the Stanley Cup in those games. They're going to award Lord Stanley's to the Detroit.
Those are all Stanley Cup clinching games. So we got to make sure we're watching all those. Art, I don't know if I've ever really asked you which one is your favorite. So really quickly, which one of those cup clinching games is your favorite?
The first one. I think the first one, just because it had been 42 years. I was a long-suffering Red Wing fan. I remember the dead things. I remember the darkness with Harkness era. I remember everything, and again, although I know he doesn't like me to say it, and I'll just mention it for the billionth time today, it really turned around when they drafted Steve. They really had somebody that was the foundation, and then, obviously drafting Nick. We can't forget Vladdy, certainly Sergei, and then the players that they acquired. The one thing is that I know the Red Wings had money, and they brought in free agents, and they traded draft picks away. And the first time they traded away number 1 draft pick was Brendan Shanahan to bring Shanahan in. But that was pretty much a lot of homegrown talent. I believe in the first Stanley Cup team, 14 of those guys were drafted by the Red Wings. So that's the thing and that's why that's special. It's kind of special in my heart, 97, and then obviously the tragic limo accident, and what they were able to do in 98, where they didn't care about the season. They just wanted to get to the playoffs because they wanted to win that cup again. So those are my most vivid memories. But, 2002 team, Hall of Fame team, rock stars. I mean, that was great. And then, to do it again in 2008 with Nick as captain. I mean, every one of them is a standalone in my book.
They all are, and that's why I'll be watching every single one of those games that we just listed, starting tomorrow night on Fox Sports Detroit. That's all we have for you guys today for the Word on Woodward. Art, as always, it's a pleasure working with you, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Danielle, you and Carly are my 2 favorites. It was fun.
It was fun. We'll see you guys on Thursday.